Something that's been an ongoing project in my Lego city for probably 6, 7 years maybe even more, is ballast train track. I've always experimented with ballast train track using the L gauge standard. We've got curves and straights, but I've never built an L gauge standard switch because it uses so many pieces. I've experimented with just laying a bunch of tiles underneath the switch to try and give it that ballast look, but I've never built a switch because it's so part intensive. It is so intimidating. You have to order so many pieces to do it. So I decided to try something that is game changing for Lego ballast track. Let's face the reality, ballast track like this looks way better than non-ballast track. And actually this stuff right here in the train yard that's still pending completion isn't even fully ballast because it doesn't have the underlying plate and tile. If we come to the middle of the city here, we can see some fully ballast straight track. Like, how good does that look? It's got the proper underlying plate and tile, and you can see it's modular, so it can come apart like so. And it attaches to either a full base plate or a half base plate. You could put 2 tracks side by side, whatever it may be. Now, the closest I've ever come to ballasting a switch track can be seen right here. There's just a bunch of underlying tile which fills in the dark gray, but there's no black ties between the rails, and it just doesn't look as complete as I would like it to be. Now, I've made multiple tutorial videos on how to ballast straight track and how to do all the underlying plate and tile work. That's what it looks like. And these came from the L-Gauge website. It's l-gauge.org. You can download all of the reference material for free, which is super cool. So there's the underlying plate and tile. And this is what the ballast segment looks like. So you just put some underlying plate, and then you fill in the gaps, and then you put the tiles across just like that. And you put them together, and then that spans 32 studs. And that will tack down like so. And we have a very nice looking ballast straight track. Whew, that looks awesome. But the straights, that's the easy part. It gets a little bit trickier when you start dealing with curves. Like, it looks good, but when you flip it upside down, you're like, oh my gosh, that is so many parts, and you can see how long it would take just to build a single segment of curve, and you need 4 of them to do a standard like left or right turn. And that doesn't even include the underlying plate and tile and also the Mills plate that the plate and tile has to be, or has to sit on, unless you just want to use standard base plates. But if you're going this far, you may as well have everything Mills plated as well. But you can see how intense this is. Like, that is crazy for a single curve. But once again, I think it's totally worth it. It looks fantastic. So that's looking pretty sweet, but it doesn't even include the ballast plate. So that's fully Mills plated, and this is a 32 by 32 base plate and 2 half base plates. And it's Mills plated using green or whatever color you want, and then you have to lay your tiles like this, and your 1 by 2 plates, 1 by 1 plates, and 1 by 1 studs around the edge of it. And then you'll see there's some 1 by 2s in sand green, and that's where you actually tack down the plate or the train track like this in the corner. And this is how you create a fully Mills plated ballast curve. It is intense. Like, it takes a ton of pieces, a lot of commitment, and quite a bit of time, but the end result is phenomenal. Like, that just looks so good. And of course, those 2 modules, they can clip together. So now we have a direct comparison of the untreated track and the ballast track. So that's the exact same thing, but a ton of parts have gone into the polished look. What do you think? Is it worth it? I think it's worth it, but seriously, have a look at the instructions for the switch track. It gets even more intense. So first off, you go to the L-Gauge website. Once again, it's l-gauge.org, and you can find all of the instructions on the reference instructions page. I think it's a tremendous service. I think it's phenomenal that all these instructions are free. That is so cool. They show you how to do absolutely everything. L-Gauge is Lego gauge, and it's a standard that all major train guys use. Like, you can come here and you can just download all these instructions. There's the part list for everything, and it just gives you a step-by-step guide on how to build all of these incredible ballast train tracks, which is amazing for all of the different radiuses as well. R40 is your standard Lego radius, R40. All the other ones are like custom 3D printed train tracks, which are like R72, R88, R104. That's how you can get those wide radius curves that are designed for like the larger customized trains, like from Brick Model Railroader, for example. But right here, you can see the ballast left switch. So I wanted to build these forever, but every time I opened these instructions and I had a look at this parts list, I was like, are you kidding me? For one switch? My city has like over 10 switches. Look at the parts list for that. It is insane. And just the labor that goes into creating this single module for your train yard or whatever it may be, it's intense. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. And I just never got the courage, I guess, to take on this project, because for the most part, my switches are in like weird random places, and some of them are even at like angles. So you can't really use these instructions to ballast those switches. So you have to like customize it, and it just becomes really difficult and overwhelming. And if I was gonna ballast one switch, I wanted to ballast them all. So I just never ended up ordering the parts. And like I said, I've been working on ballasting my train track and having a cool train yard for as long as I've been a Lego city builder. But these instructions have just always overwhelmed me, and I just didn't want to do it. So I never ended up doing it. But today, I'm going to present to you a really cool solution. Introducing 3D printed ballast plates for left and right switches that are fully compatible with standard Lego products. These are from Trixbrix.eu, and they cost €11.55, so approximately $12 US. So you can ballast a switch track for $12 US. Oh my gosh, that is the ultimate solution. I know it's not Lego, and I know you're cutting a corner, but did you see that parts list? And I've got some issues in my Lego city where not all of my switches are straight. Some of them are diagonal, and it's just not gonna work out. So I think this is the ultimate solution for ballasting train track. And you know what? You can get curves, and you can also get straights as well. So you can get curved straights and switch tracks ballast plates, so you don't have to go through the process of ordering hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of pieces to ballast your Lego city. You simply need the 3D printed ballast plates. I think this is legendary. Once again, I know this isn't real Lego. It's third-party 3D printed stuff, but when things are so challenging to do and take so much resources and so much time, and there's a simplistic option, why not run with it? So these are split into 4 different sections. This is our left switch, and all we do is just pop it on like so, and it's just so simple, so quick, so easy. It fills in all the gaps. We still have Lego compatible studs that we can put our ties on, and it just makes so much sense to me to do this. Honestly, if I was starting over, like if I didn't already have all the parts necessary to do all my curves and everything, I would just order the plates for the curves too. And you can order plates for the switches or for the straights. And I think what's convenient about it is the fact that there's not really any loose pieces. Of course, I'm going to struggle to put it together on camera. That's just how things work in this YouTube world. You know what I mean? But what's interesting is the fact that there's no loose pieces. For example, when I move curves or when I moved these train tracks from A to B, whether you're bringing them to a show or you're relocating or you're just moving them around your city, I've noticed that the curves are very fragile. In fact, I have some curves right here, and there's a lot of pieces. So like these 1x2s and stuff, like stuff can just fall off of them. Whereas when you just have a few pieces like this, it makes it very easy. The 3D printed ballast plates themselves are also Lego compatible. Like these are Lego compatible. So you can tack down your train tracks probably on the side here in the front and also on the back, and then you lay tile down everywhere else, and then you have a fully ballast switch track, which looks just like your other Lego built ballast stuff with the plate coming off the side. So there's still some parts that have to go into it, like you still got to do the underlying plate and tile to give it that nice look, but it's going to be a lot easier to work with. I'm pretty excited about that. And we can take those black 1x4 tiles that I use as my ties, and we can pop them down and dress these bad boys up. This is so awesome. I'm so excited. I'm finally going to have fully ballast train track in my train yard thanks to Trixbrix. Like, this is incredible. I am so excited about this. Now, unfortunately, at this particular time, I don't have any more examples. I only ordered one left and one right because I wanted to test them before ordering a bunch of them, because they do cost €11.55, which once again is about $12 US or whatever it is. So it's not too bad. In the end, I think it's actually cheaper than ordering all the parts, and they're going to be solid. And the color is a really good match. Like, it's a little bit off. Of course, you don't have the Lego like word or logo on each stud, but oh well. That is the solution. Yeah, baby. But you see what I mean down here? In my train yard, you'll notice that some of my switch tracks are angled. Like, that's at a slight angle. So the standard L gauge isn't going to work for that. That's at an angle too. It's not going to work for that. So now, if I just use the ballast there, like the ballast plate, and then I just put some tile and some plate poking out on either side, put a couple tiles underneath to support it, so that make sure that they don't fall apart. Bob's your uncle. It's going to be that easy. It's funny, I just realized that the switch track that I was using, specifically the switch right, looks like I modified that with a razor blade quite some time ago. That was like old Lego room. Because look, I cut the end off. Like, what was I doing there? I don't even remember doing that. Actually, I sort of do, but I would never do that again, I don't think. That's sort of weird. But now what I'm going to do is go grab one that's not cut, and I'm going to try and set up a switch leading up to this straight and that curve, just to see what that tile and plate configuration has to be underneath that ballast plate that accommodates the switch. All right, so the first thing I've got to do is just lay some 1x plate on the straight side of the switch track. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. And what I'm actually going to do is tack down the ballast plate, because those can actually tack down to studs, and then you're just going to rest the switch track right on top of that. So all I need to do is just add 1x2 plates on the edge of it, and also 1x1 plates and 1x1 circular plates, and then just make a perimeter for the ballast plate. And then once I got my perimeter laid, then I can go ahead and fill in some of the space along the edge, which would be exposed on the side of the track using dark gray tile. And then I'm going to also add some like random red colored tile underneath that's just going to provide the ballast plate and the switch track on top with more support. I'm sure like the angled parts, you could probably tack that down using like jumpers or something, but I'm not really concerned because for the most part, it's all going to be held down, and then it's going to be held together with the track as well. And then once I got it all laid down there, it's time to add my sleepers or ties, and I'm going to do that using 1x1 black tiles, also 1x4s, and then inside the switch, there's some like 1x2 spots as well. So just make sure I get those all aligned. And then I also have to build a curve that's going to be like a left-hand curve. It's funny because the curves, they're actually different from one another. There's like a left curve and a right curve. There's a difference with the way it's constructed with like the corner plate and the rail plate in the inside and on the edges. So you just got to make sure that you have the right curve. Otherwise your sleepers won't line up. It's sort of tricky. Not really. There's just two different versions of the curve. There's a left and a right curve. But eventually I get it figured out. I don't know why I'm putting so much time into it because this isn't going anywhere in the city, but I just wanted to make a nice example of the switch track with the ballast plate and also the straight and the curve and how they all connect and how they all look so good together. It's a fun little side project. So there we have it, folks. That's the whole lineup for R40. We've got the full curve, we've got the straight, and now we have the right switch, and the left switch would be exactly the same, but you can see how they just come together beautifully. I also put the return in there, so that worked out, and then I could just put a whole nother curve if you wanted to have another line right beside it. I think a curve would line up perfectly with that because we're one track back from the start of the curve. Oh, that is so clean though. Look at that. The 3D printed ballast switch. You can't even tell that it's 3D printed. Of course you could if you got right in close. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the tiles were adapting to that there because you can see a 1x2 actually wouldn't go on there. I think you have to use two single 1x1s. Yeah, which I didn't like the look of, so I decided to leave no tile on there. But I could use two 1x1s. Let's see. It doesn't look that good, I don't think. There's like a small gap between them, and they sort of get not like in line with one another. So I don't know if that's optimal. But I have my ties starting like here in this position. You could shift them one forward. And that's why I had to switch this curve because they were shifted in one. But you can do it either way. But you just got to make sure that it's all consistent. And the only place that's going to change like the build style for the L gauge standard is with the curve, and changing it can be sort of a nuisance. So you got to make sure you get it built right the first time around because I had to switch this one. Oh, I didn't switch these tiles. Sorry. So I fixed it up there, but it's sort of strange. You see how this curve is like that? And then when I take one of these other ones, it's actually different. See how the ties start one in? And then when you look at the configuration on the back, it's reversed. So the plates on the side are reversed, like the rail plates and the 2x2s, and also the configuration of the center fill-in thing. So that's another thing too. If you order the 3D printed ballast plates, you're not gonna have to worry about that because it just fills it in completely. So you don't have to worry about which orientation you build it. Okay, so under here actually, let's have a look at the ballast plate. So what I did was just tacked it down using 1x2 plates. Just a little bit of underlying stuff there, not too much. I could probably put more tiles if I wanted, but I used red because those ones are concealed. And then it's tacked down on these 1x2 plates. And what I did was just build the track or put the ballast plate in, and then I popped the track on top. And I'm sure it could be done differently. Like for example, we could tack this down in more places. I don't have this piece right here tacked down with like a jumper or anything, so we could do that. But I don't think it really requires more. Underneath the track, if you truly wanted to, you could cover it completely with tile and you could do way more points of attachment. But I think That's all you really need. And then this goes together. Sometimes train track's tricky to get together, but there you go. And then we've got the plate and tile there, and that's for our return curve. And that tacks down right there. That is clean. Woo! So here's the Trixbrix website. They have so much stuff. This is where you can order those like crazy radius curves and like double switches and R104s and R48s and R72s, R40s, things that are like double switches, triple switches, like pretty much anything you can imagine that Lego would never create. I'm not going to get any of this crazy stuff. I'm probably just going to stick to using the standard Lego R40s, but honestly, if I have to ballast any more track, or if I decide to switch my entire city to ballast track, because that is an option, I'm for sure going to use the ballast plates. Typically when you're here, you're going to see a lot of ballast plates and it's a little bit overwhelming. Make sure you don't order R40 stuff. That's not what it's called on their website. It's actually called Lego. So if you search Lego, you're going to get the Lego stuff. So you can see it's ballast plate for original Lego switch track right and switch track left. And there should be the ballast plates for the straights and curves as well. One thing I wish they would do is actually put a category on the website here that would group all that Lego stuff together so it's not mixed in with all of this oddball stuff, because they create ballast plates and switches and all sorts of different weird stuff. So if they could just group the Lego compatible ballast plates together for the straights, curves, and switches, that would be convenient. Straight ballast plate, look how easy that is. It's just two pieces that just clips onto the bottom of the straight. And then you can add your ties and away you go, or your sleepers, and away you go. Pretty awesome stuff. Wow. Okay, so now that I know that works, it's pretty sweet. Now I need to go through and calculate how many I need to get. So there's a right, there's a left. This was a right that I removed for this video because the other one was cut. There's a left there, there's a right there, there's another left there, there's another right over there. Look how many switches are in this area. And I need to get those ordered because I'm for sure going to use those. And one of my next projects that I want to work on is upgrading the train yard. And I think in order to work on that, I need to finish this ballast track project. And I'm definitely going to do that using the Trixbrix 3D printed ballast plates. That's incredible. I'm sorry that I got a little bit passionate in this video here. I am pretty excited about finally taking care of that. Like I've been mentioning, I have been working on ballasting my train track and working on a train yard with ballasted track for like forever. It must be 2018 I started that, maybe 2019. So a long, long time. And I'm finally going to do it here in 2025. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on by. I don't have an affiliate link or anything for Trixbrix, but feel free to check out their website. I've put it in the description below. I also put a link to the L-Gauge website as well if you want to refer to those instructions if you prefer to Lego build your stuff. But if I was starting from scratch, I would probably just go the 3D printed route because it's easier to use. You can put stuff at angles. It's not as fragile, and it's probably a little bit more cost effective too. Maybe not. Maybe around the same, but less hassle, that's for sure. I know, it's cutting a corner. Sometimes you gotta cut corners in life. That's where I'll leave it. Thank you so much for coming on by. Please remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Farewell.